Have you ever had the unsettling feeling that life is not happening to you, but from you? Not as a motivational slogan, yet as a mechanism. Because when you look closely, your outer world behaves like a screen. It repeats themes, patterns, and emotional signatures with a precision that feels almost scripted. Different people, same dynamic. Different job, same pressure. Different relationship, same ending. And the question is not, why does this keep happening? The deeper question is, what inside you keeps selecting the same reality frame? In physics, a projection requires a source, a lens, and a surface. Your consciousness is the source. Your beliefs and emotional habits are the lens. And the world, your circumstances, your timing, your outcomes, becomes the surface where the image lands. Here is the uncomfortable twist. Most people try to change the surface. They rearrange the screen, swap locations, chase new goals, force new habits. But if the lens remains the same, the projected image returns because the signal did not change. So what is the signal? It is not what you want. It is what you expect, what you tolerate, and what you silently assume you are allowed to receive. Your life is constantly answering a question you may not even realize you're asking. What kind of person am I in this world? And in the next topic, we'll expose the two hidden self-image wounds that quietly decide your financial reality before you ever take action. The hidden wounds that quietly block prosperity. What if the real reason you haven't reached the level of prosperity you desire has nothing to do with strategy and everything to do with identity? Most people believe financial stagnation is a matter of timing, market conditions, or lack of opportunity. And yet, if that were true, why do two individuals with similar skills, similar environments, and similar resources produce completely different outcomes? Why does one expand while the other plateaus? The answer is subtle and uncomfortable. At the root of most prosperity limitations lie two silent fractures in self-esteem. The first is unworthiness, a quiet, internal belief that says, if I truly rise, I will be exposed. This is imposter syndrome in disguise. It does not shout. It whispers. It allows moderate success, but resists overflow. It accepts survival, but fears visibility. The second is incapability. This wound says, I am not built for expansion. It questions endurance, intelligence, resilience. It interprets temporary setbacks as permanent proof. And because the subconscious mind seeks consistency, it filters reality to confirm that narrative. Now here is the energetic consequence. Both wounds lower your internal frequency. And frequency is not mystical poetry, it is coherence. When your beliefs, emotions, and expectations vibrate at a level of limitation, your actions unconsciously align with that ceiling. You hesitate. You delay. You underprice. You self-sabotage subtly enough to remain rational. And then you say, money is not my priority. But what if that statement is not truth, only protection? In the next topic, we will examine how frequency actually determines your results and why your station selects the experiences you encounter. If this perspective is expanding your awareness, subscribe now and like this video. You are not here by accident. Let's continue. The frequency that chooses your outcomes. Have you ever noticed how certain people seem to attract opportunity while others repeatedly encounter obstacles, even when both are equally capable? Is it luck? Timing? Or is there an invisible selection process constantly filtering what enters your life? Everything in existence operates as frequency. This is not metaphorical language. It is measurable reality. At the quantum level, matter is vibration. At the psychological level, identity is pattern vibration. And at the experiential level, life organizes itself around resonance. You do not attract what you want. You attract what matches your dominant internal frequency. Think of yourself as a broadcasting station. Your beliefs set the base signal. Your emotions amplify it. Your language stabilizes it. Your actions confirm it. Together, they create a coherent or incoherent field. If your internal station carries subtle doubt, guardedness, or expectation of struggle, you unconsciously tune into scenarios that validate that pattern. Not because life is punishing you, but because resonance is neutral mathematics. A 95.5 FM receiver cannot access a 102.7 signal unless it changes frequency. This explains why forced positivity rarely works. Repeating affirmations while internally vibrating fear creates incoherence, and incoherence produces unstable results. The deeper question becomes, what is the dominant emotional tone you sustain when no one is watching? Expansion or contraction? Trust or guardedness? Sufficiency or scarcity? Because your outer results are not random events. They are stabilized reflections of your inner station. In the next topic, we will break down the 4 internal pillars that construct this frequency and how misalignment between them silently collapses your progress. The 4 internal pillars that construct your reality. If frequency determines your results, what actually builds that frequency? It is not a single thought, not a temporary mood, not a motivational burst. Your vibrational state is constructed through 4 interconnected internal pillars: beliefs, emotions, communication, and actions. Together, they form the architecture of your personal reality. Let's begin with beliefs. Beliefs are not opinions. They are assumptions you no longer question. They operate beneath awareness, shaping what you perceive as possible. If you believe success requires struggle, you will unconsciously resist ease. If you believe love is unstable, you will scan for instability. Beliefs generate emotions. When a belief is rooted in scarcity or fear, the emotional field becomes anxious, defensive, or guarded. If the belief is grounded in sufficiency and capability, the emotional tone becomes calm, confident, expansive. Emotions then shape communication. And communication is not only what you say to others, it is what you repeat internally. Your tone, posture, subtle word choices, and even silence transmit a signal. If your emotional state is unstable, your communication becomes inconsistent. And inconsistency weakens influence. Finally, communication directs action. Misaligned communication leads to hesitant behavior. You delay decisions. You half commit. You withdraw too early. From the outside, it looks like procrastination. From the inside, it is vibrational misalignment. Here is the critical insight. When one pillar weakens, the others destabilize. A limiting belief disrupts emotion. Emotional imbalance distorts communication. Distorted communication sabotages action. And weakened action confirms the original belief. Can you see the loop? In the next topic, We will examine how this loop operates unconsciously and how most people create their reality without realizing they are doing it. Conscious creation or unconscious repetition. Are you consciously creating your life or unconsciously repeating it? Every single day, you are generating outcomes. Conversations unfold. Opportunities appear or disappear. Financial flows increase or contract. Relationships deepen or fracture. Creation is constant. The only variable is awareness. Most people assume creation begins with action. But action is the final stage of a much earlier internal process. Before behavior, there is communication. Before communication, there is emotion. Before emotion, there is belief. And beneath belief lies identity. If your identity is anchored in unresolved wounds, unworthiness, incapability, fear of visibility, then your entire creative process originates from that foundation. You may consciously desire expansion, but subconsciously protect limitation. And the subconscious always seeks familiarity over growth. This is why repetition feels inevitable. You leave one situation, yet encounter a similar pattern elsewhere. You promise yourself you will respond differently, yet react the same way under pressure. It is not lack of willpower. It is identity coherence. The subconscious prioritizes consistency over aspiration. Conscious creation begins when you interrupt this automatic loop, when you observe a reaction before acting, when you question a belief before defending it, when you recognize that your emotional state is not an external reaction, but an internal broadcast. Here is the crucial distinction. You are always creating. The question is, from which layer of yourself? From your highest, aware essence, or from your unexamined conditioning? And in the next topic, we will explore a philosophical foundation that explains this process at a profound level, the idea that reality itself emanates from a single source of consciousness. The emanation principle. Reality flows from within. What if reality does not begin outside you at all, but flows outward from a deeper source of consciousness? Centuries ago, the philosopher Plotinus proposed a radical idea. Everything that exists emanates from a single, unified source, what he called the One. According to this view, material reality is not primary. It is the densest expression of something subtler: thought, intention, consciousness. Now pause and consider the implication. If physical reality is the final layer of manifestation, then what you see is the end result, not the beginning. Matter is the last step in a descending sequence. First comes essence, then thought, then frequency, then form. This aligns remarkably with both quantum observation and psychological experience. In quantum physics, particles do not behave as fixed objects until observed. At a foundational level, reality exists as potential. Observation collapses potential into form. Translate that into your life. Before an outcome becomes visible, before money enters your account, before a relationship stabilizes, before an opportunity appears, it first exists as a field of possibility. That possibility is shaped by attention, expectation, and internal coherence. You are not separate from the creative source. You are an extension of it. Creation is not something you earned through struggle. It is your nature. The only distortion arises when you forget that nature and identify with limitation instead of origin. Low frequency is not disconnection, it is amnesia. So the real question becomes, what would shift in your life if you remembered that you are not waiting for creation, but participating in it? In the next topic, we will explore why transformation is not about adding more, but removing what distorts your signal. Creation is removal, not accumulation. What if the breakthrough you are waiting for does not require adding anything to your life, but removing something from it? Most people approach transformation as accumulation. More knowledge, more techniques, more affirmations, more effort. They believe expansion is built through addition. But what if growth is actually a process of subtraction? Imagine a mirror covered in dust. The mirror does not need to be upgraded. It does not need a new frame. It does not need to be replaced. It simply needs to be cleaned. The reflection was always possible. It was only distorted. Your consciousness functions the same way. Limiting beliefs are dust. Emotional wounds are residue. Scarcity narratives are smudges on the surface of perception. And when you attempt to manifest from a distorted mirror, you project a distorted image. Reprogramming, then, is not about forcing new outcomes. It is about clearing the lens through which you interpret reality. When you remove the belief, I am not enough, you do not create worthiness, you reveal it. When you release the assumption success requires suffering, you do not manufacture ease, you allow it. This is purification, not acquisition. The law of attraction is often misunderstood as a tool to accumulate desires, but at its core, it is alignment. And alignment is the natural state that emerges when resistance dissolves. So ask yourself, what belief are you still protecting that is protecting your limitation? In the next topic, we will examine the mirror metaphor more deeply and uncover how your external world precisely reflects the internal state you sustain. The mirror that never lies. Have you ever considered that your external world may be nothing more than a perfectly calibrated mirror? Not a poetic mirror, not a symbolic one, a precise, emotionally accurate reflection. Most people resist this idea because it feels confrontational. If reality mirrors your inner state, then circumstances are not random. Patterns are not accidental. Recurring frustrations are not external injustices. They are feedback. Imagine standing before a mirror while frowning and demanding that the reflection smile first. Absurd, right? Yet this is how many approach life. They wait for the outside to change so they can feel secure, worthy, or confident. But the mirror only responds. It does not initiate. Your beliefs are the frame. Your emotions are the light. Your communication is the angle. Your actions are the confirmation. Together, they produce the image you experience. If you secretly believe money is unstable, you will notice instability. If you expect relationships to disappoint you, you will detect subtle signals of withdrawal. And because the subconscious seeks coherence, you will interpret neutral events as confirmation of what you already assume. The mirror does not judge. It does not punish. It simply reflects dominant patterns. Here is the empowering realization. If distortion appears, it reveals what requires cleaning. Frustration becomes diagnostic information. Disappointment becomes clarity. The mirror is not your enemy. It is your instrument panel. But there is something else that clouds the mirror even more than belief. Resistance. In the next topic, we will confront the subtle force that blocks flow, slows manifestation, and keeps you gripping outcomes too tightly, attachment. The invisible grip. how attachment blocks flow. If reality mirrors your internal state, then what happens when your inner state is tense, contracted, gripping? Have you ever wanted something so badly that the wanting itself felt heavy, urgent, pressurized, almost desperate? And strangely, the more you pushed, the further it seemed to move away.
Why?
Because attachment is resistance disguised as desire. When you cling tightly to an outcome, you're not broadcasting confidence. You are broadcasting fear of not having it. And frequency responds to emotional tone, not verbal intention. You may say, "I trust." But if your nervous system is signaling scarcity, that is the message being transmitted. Attachment begins with fear of loss. Fear generates control. Control creates tension. Tension disrupts flow. Think of water. When it flows freely, it carries power. But when blocked, it stagnates. The same principle applies to money, love, opportunity, and creativity. Circulation sustains vitality. Constriction breeds decay. Here is the paradox. The tighter you hold, the more you communicate distrust. And distrust lowers frequency. The universe, if you prefer that language, or the field of resonance responds not by punishing you, but by matching your signal. Scarcity attracts scarcity. Urgency attracts delay. Letting go does not mean indifference. It means trust and movement. It means releasing the demand that a specific form must appear in a specific way. So ask yourself honestly, where are you gripping so tightly that your hands are closed? In the next topic, we will examine how scarcity mindset quietly reinforces this grip and why closed hands cannot receive. The scarcity script that silently governs you. What if scarcity is not a financial condition but a psychological script you keep rehearsing? Scarcity is subtle. It does not always announce itself as fear. Sometimes it appears as being realistic. Sometimes it disguises itself as prudence. But beneath the surface, scarcity carries a single assumption: there is not enough. Not enough money. Not enough opportunity. Not enough time. Not enough love. And sometimes, most dangerously, not enough of you. When the mind adopts the script, it begins filtering reality accordingly. You interpret neutral events as threats. You hesitate before investing in yourself. You overanalyze decisions. You cling to what you have because losing it feels catastrophic. Scarcity turns possibility into competition. It converts expansion into survival. Energetically, scarcity is contraction. It narrows perception. It reduces creativity. It lowers resilience. And because frequency operates on coherence, a contracted state attracts limited scenarios. Not as punishment, but as reflection. Imagine trying to receive water while clenching your fists. Closed hands cannot hold flow. Yet many attempt to manifest abundance while internally bracing for loss. Here is the deeper layer. Scarcity is often inherited. It comes from family narratives, cultural conditioning, childhood observation. You may have absorbed it long before you had the awareness to question it. And once embedded, it shapes identity. The powerful shift begins when you recognize scarcity not as truth, but as programming. So let me ask you, when you think about expansion, does your body relax or tighten? In the next topic, we will explore the Taoist principle of flow and why flexibility, not force, is the real path to power. The power of flow, why flexibility creates strength. Why do you believe force produces results? From childhood, you were taught that effort equals reward. Push harder. Compete more. Control outcomes. But what if control is not strength and rigidity is not power? Taoist philosophy offers a radically different model. Water is its central metaphor. Water does not resist obstacles. It does not argue with rock. It does not demand permission. It flows around, over, or through barriers. And over time, it reshapes mountains. Why is water powerful? Because it adapts. Rigidity fractures under pressure. Flexibility absorbs it. When you resist circumstances, argue with reality, replay unfair moments, demand immediate resolution, you create friction. Friction drains energy. Energy depletion lowers frequency. And lowered frequency narrows perception. Flow is not passivity. It is intelligent alignment. When something can be changed, flow means taking calm, precise action. When something cannot be changed, flow means adapting without internal collapse. In both cases, resistance is reduced. And when resistance decreases, movement returns. Notice how opportunities appear when you relax after intense frustration. Notice how clarity often comes when you stop forcing an answer. That is not coincidence. It is reduced tension restoring coherence. The field of resonance responds more easily to flexibility than to desperation. Force communicates fear. Flow communicates trust. So, ask yourself, where in your life are you fighting what could be navigated? In the next topic, we will explore how resistance itself communicates distrust and why the universe mirrors that signal with precision. What your resistance is telling the universe. When you resist something, what message are you actually sending? Resistance is rarely loud. It does not always look like anger or defiance. Often, it appears as subtle tension, overthinking, replaying conversations, anticipating problems before they exist, quietly bracing for impact. But beneath all of these behaviors lies one core signal: distrust. When you grip tightly, when you attempt to control every variable, when you cannot release a specific outcome, you are communicating, I do not believe life will support me unless I force it. And frequency responds to belief, not words. Resistance creates energetic noise. It distorts clarity. It divides your internal pillars: belief, emotion, communication, and action. You may claim confidence, but if your emotional field is tense, the signal is incoherent. And incoherence weakens manifestation. Think about it. When you are calm and grounded, solutions appear more easily. When you are panicked and rigid, even simple decisions feel complex. The difference is not intelligence. It is vibrational coherence. Resistance narrows possibility. Trust expands it. This is why scarcity attracts more scarcity. Not as punishment, but as reflection. When your dominant state is fear of loss, you amplify the very frequency you are trying to escape. The universe mirrors emotional mathematics. It does not interpret your intention, it matches your signal. So, here is the critical question. If life is responding to your inner state, what would change if you replaced resistance with grounded trust? In the next topic, we will explore a foundational Buddhist insight that explains why attachment and resistance to what is creates suffering and blocks flow. Attachment, suffering, and the illusion of control. Why does holding on so tightly often create the very suffering you are trying to avoid? Buddhist philosophy offers a powerful insight. The root of suffering is attachment, not desire itself, but the insistence that reality must conform to your preferred outcome. The moment you demand that something must happen in a specific way at a specific time, you create internal resistance. And resistance generates tension. Attachment is subtle. It sounds like, I'll be happy when, or once this happens, I'll finally relax. It postpones peace. It ties emotional stability to external conditions. And when those conditions fluctuate, as all things do, you fluctuate with them. Here is the deeper distortion. Attachment creates the illusion of control. You believe that gripping tightly protects you, but in truth, it binds you. It contracts perception. It narrows creativity. It lowers resilience. Control feels safe in the short term, but long term, it amplifies anxiety. Life operates through impermanence. Relationships evolve. Markets shift. Opportunities arise and dissolve. When you resist impermanence, you resist reality itself. And resisting reality is exhausting. Letting go is not surrendering ambition. It is releasing the illusion that your security depends on controlling outcomes. It is shifting from I must force this to I will participate fully and trust the process. When attachment dissolves, clarity increases. When resistance fades, flow returns. So let me ask you, what outcome are you holding so tightly that it has begun to hold you? In the next topic, we will explore why flow requires circulation and how stagnation quietly blocks prosperity, love, and energy. Circulation, the law that sustains abundance. What happens to water when it stops moving? It stagnates. It loses clarity. It becomes heavy. The same principle applies to money, love, energy, creativity, and even opportunity. Flow sustains vitality. Stagnation breeds decay. Many people want abundance, but subconsciously resist circulation. They want to receive, but hesitate to release. They want stability, but fear movement. And yet, every system in nature depends on exchange. Breath flows in and out. Blood circulates. Oceans move with tides. Even atoms exchange energy. Abundance is not accumulation. It is circulation. When you cling to money in fear, you tighten your energetic field. When you withhold generosity out of anxiety, you reinforce scarcity. When you avoid investing in growth because of fear of loss, you freeze expansion. Closed systems collapse. Open systems regenerate. This does not mean reckless spending or naive giving. Circulation is intelligent movement. It means allowing resources to move through you without fear. It means trusting that flow creates renewal. Notice something powerful. People who feel abundant tend to create momentum. They invest. They collaborate. They expand. Their frequency communicates trust and movement. And trust invites opportunity. Prosperity is not about how much you hold. It is about how confidently you allow movement. So, ask yourself honestly, where have you created energetic stagnation? Where are you afraid to release, even though holding on feels heavy? In the next topic, we will make this practical, identifying how to release attachment and restore movement in real, measurable ways. The practical art of letting go. How do you actually let go? without pretending, without suppressing, without bypassing your fear. Letting go is often misunderstood as emotional detachment, but true release is not indifference. It is clarity. It is the willingness to participate fully while releasing the demand that reality must obey your timeline. The first step is identification. Where are you gripping? In finances? In a relationship? In your reputation? Pay attention to where your thoughts loop. Where does your body tighten? Where does urgency replace calm strategy? The second step is investigation. Behind every attachment lies a belief. Ask yourself, what am I afraid would happen if this did not work out? Often, the answer reveals the deeper wound. Fear of not being enough. Fear of losing security. Fear of losing identity. The third step is reorientation. Instead of clinging to a specific outcome, anchor yourself in a broader intention. Instead of, I need this exact opportunity, shift to, I align with expansion. Instead of, this must work, move toward, I trust the process of growth. Letting go restores flexibility, and flexibility restores power. When you release the demand for control, you free your energy for intelligent action. You stop reacting from fear and begin responding from coherence. The mind becomes clearer. Decisions become lighter. Opportunities become more visible. Let me ask you something directly. Are you holding on because it serves your growth or because it protects your fear? In the next topic, we will examine how resistance shows up inside the 4 internal pillars and how to recognize it before it sabotages your progress. Resistance hides inside your internal pillars. If resistance blocks flow, where exactly does it live inside you? It does not float abstractly in your energy field. It embeds itself inside your 4 internal pillars: beliefs, emotions, communication, and actions, and quietly destabilizes them from within. Let's begin with beliefs. Limiting beliefs are resistance in conceptual form. Money is hard. Success changes people. I always struggle. These are not harmless thoughts. They are closed hands at the level of identity. They predecide your ceiling. Now, emotions. Fear-based emotions, anxiety, jealousy, defensiveness, are resistance in energetic form. They signal contraction. They tell your nervous system to brace rather than expand. And when you operate from contraction, your perception narrows. You see fewer options. You expect fewer breakthroughs. Communication is resistance expressed outwardly. Scarcity language reinforces attachment. Pay attention to phrases like, I can't afford to risk it. This probably won't work, or I'll try. Words are vibrational stabilizers. They anchor emotional states into patterns. Finally, actions. Fear-driven inaction is resistance materialized. Procrastination. Half-commitment. Quitting early. Over-preparing without executing. These behaviors are not laziness. They are protective mechanisms preserving identity coherence. Here is the loop. Limiting belief fuels fear. Fear distorts communication. Distorted communication weakens action. Weak action confirms the limiting belief. And the cycle repeats. The moment you identify resistance within a pillar, you reclaim power. Awareness interrupts automation, and interruption creates space for conscious choice. So, ask yourself, which pillar is currently carrying the weight of your resistance? In the next topic, we will confront the final truth, why insight alone is not enough, and why consistency is the bridge between awareness and transformation. Insight alone will not transform you. If awareness is powerful, why do so many people remain stuck even after they understand their patterns? You can recognize your limiting beliefs. You can identify attachment. You can intellectually grasp the mechanics of frequency, resonance, and projection. And yet, your life may still look the same.
Why?
Because insight creates clarity, but repetition creates identity. Your subconscious mind does not reorganize itself because you had a breakthrough moment. It reorganizes through consistent exposure to new patterns, through repeated emotional reinforcement, through structured behavioral shifts that stabilize a new internal signal. Think about this. The beliefs shaping your current reality were not formed in a single afternoon. They were installed over years through repetition, observation, emotional experiences, and reinforcement. Why would they dissolve after one realization? Transformation is neurological and energetic conditioning. When you consistently interrupt a limiting belief and replace it with a grounded alternative, you begin rewiring expectation. When you repeatedly act from alignment, even when discomfort arises, you teach your nervous system that expansion is safe. When your communication shifts from scarcity to confidence again and again, your frequency stabilizes at a new level. Consistency is not discipline for its own sake. It is coherence training. Without repetition, insight becomes inspiration, and inspiration fades. But structured, repeated alignment builds momentum, and momentum stabilizes identity. So let me ask you directly, are you collecting insights or are you building a new internal structure? In the next topic, we will explore how environment and structure accelerate this transformation and why isolation often reinforces stagnation. Environment, the silent architect of your frequency. If your identity is shaped through repetition, what determines the patterns you repeat most often? Your environment. You may believe you are fully self-directed, but the truth is more nuanced. Your surroundings, physical spaces, conversations, social circles, digital consumption continuously reinforce certain beliefs and emotional states. And whatever is reinforced becomes normalized. Environment stabilizes frequency. If you are immersed in conversations about limitation, your perception calibrates to constraint. If you are surrounded by individuals who fear risk, you internalize caution. If your daily input is saturated with crisis narratives, your nervous system adapts to vigilance. This is not weakness. It is coherence. The brain is designed to synchronize with its environment. Mirror neurons activate. Emotional tones spread. Expectations become contagious. And slowly, your internal pillars align with what is repeatedly modeled around you. Now, consider the reverse. When you expose yourself consistently to expansion, people who think differently, content that challenges limitation, environments that embody possibility, you begin to recalibrate. New standards feel accessible. New behaviors feel normal. What once seemed intimidating becomes familiar. Environment is not decoration. It is programming. If you attempt to rewire your beliefs while remaining immersed in reinforcing scarcity, the process becomes slower and more unstable. But when structure and environment support your intention, transformation accelerates. So, here's the question. Is your current environment expanding your identity or protecting your limitation? In the next topic, We will bring everything together, exploring how aligned identity activates opportunity, synchronicity, and measurable external change. When identity shifts, reality responds. What if opportunity is not something you chase, but something that activates when your identity stabilizes at a new level? Most people attempt to change results without changing self-perception. They set goals that exceed their internal comfort zone. They pursue outcomes their nervous system still interprets as unsafe. And when tension rises, they retreat, not because they lack ability, but because their identity has not expanded to contain the result. Reality organizes itself around who you believe you are. When your internal pillars align, when beliefs support expansion, emotions stabilize trust, communication reflects confidence, and actions reinforce coherence, you generate a new signal. That signal is not forced. It is consistent. And consistency is what activates resonance. This is where synchronicity begins to appear. You meet the right person at an unexpected moment. An idea aligns with a timely opportunity. A door opens that previously seemed invisible. From the outside, it appears lucky. But from the inside, it is alignment meeting readiness. Opportunity does not feel foreign when identity has shifted. It feels appropriate. This is critical. External change often lags behind internal transformation. There is a delay between signal adjustment and visible outcome. During this delay, many lose faith and revert to old patterns. But those who remain consistent stabilize the new frequency long enough for reflection to occur. Let me ask you something important. If your current reality is a mirror, who must you become for the reflection to change? In the final topic, we will confront the ultimate decision, whether you remain a passive participant in projection or become the conscious author of your reality. The decision to become the author. If your life is a projection, if your frequency selects your experiences, if your identity stabilizes your results, then who is truly in control? This is the moment of responsibility, not blame. Responsibility. Blame keeps you trapped in reaction. Responsibility restores authorship. And authorship begins with a single internal decision. I am no longer a passive reflection of circumstance. I am the origin of my signal. Most people drift between unconscious creation and frustrated reaction. They adjust behavior without adjusting belief. They chase outcomes without stabilizing identity. They wait for motivation before acting. And then they wonder why results fluctuate. But you now understand something deeper. Your reality mirrors your dominant internal state. Your internal state is built through aligned pillars. Alignment is maintained through consistency. Consistency is sustained by conscious choice. This is not mystical thinking. It is structural coherence. You do not control every event, but you absolutely govern your signal. And when your signal shifts, your perception shifts. When perception shifts, decisions change. When decisions change, outcomes reorganize. The power was never absent. It was unclaimed. So, here is the final question I will leave with you. Will you continue adjusting the surface of your life, or will you deliberately refine the source from which it projects? Because once you choose authorship, every thought, every word, every action becomes intentional. And that is when projection becomes creation. If this message resonated with you, subscribe now and become part of this journey. Follow the channel, like this video, and share it with someone ready to step into authorship. Your reality reflects your signal. Choose it consciously.